Alright, you guys, I hope you guys are having a good night. Today, I need for you guys to take out your handout that I gave you guys in class today. Today is Tuesday, September 25th, and the handout is the handout for the literary terms in Of Mice and Men. As I go through the PowerPoint today, I want you to copy down the definitions in the definition column of your chart. I also want for you to write down any examples or other pieces of information you would need from the slide onto the side that says definition. Please leave the other side blank. We will fill that out as we go through Of Mice and Men. Alright, you guys, the first two words I would like for you to define on your chart is theme. Theme is a central idea or underlying meaning of a literary work. The visual below that definition includes some themes that are pretty common in different texts we will read. The other word I would like for you to define on your chart is the use of symbols to represent ideas, qualities, or something else beyond itself. The visual I included includes the colors and what they represent. Sometimes a bird, like the dove, could be a symbol for peace. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go to the next slide. The next literary term is allusion. An allusion is a short, informal reference to a famous person, event, or story. So in the first example or visual on the left, you will see a picture, and it's a famous picture. It's called The Scream. It's an illustration, and in the movie Scream we see a mask that alludes to the illustration that we see on the left, The Scream. Another allusion comes from the Disney's Hercules. They have the characters alluding to the Karate Kid and how the Karate Kid looked in front of the sun by a beach. The next slide with two words that I would love for you to define on your handout is tone. Tone is the attitude of a writer toward his or her subject or an audience. There's a visual for various common tones. Mood is the atmosphere that is created by an author's words and descriptions. It's how the text makes the reader or the listener feel. I have some examples of mood. For instance, if a text said, "The night was dark and stormy," the sentence gives you a scary mood or feeling. Another example, if the story said, "The man kicked and threw the poor cat out of his house," the sentence gives you a feeling of anger or pity towards the cat. And the last example from a text says, "There was plenty of food and the music was playing. Everybody was having a good time." The sentence gives you a feeling or a mood of happiness and fun. Alright, I'm going to go to the next slide. The term is foreshadowing. It is defined as words and phrases and hints that set the stage for the story to unfold in upcoming events. I just realized I have a typo, and the word "and" should be "an." So please make that correction in the definition. The one cool thing I really like about this visual right here, I like this part, the vocab hints towards the bottom on the left. It says fore means ahead, and shadow is a glimpse of something without full detail. So foreshadow is a glimpse of something ahead in the story without full detail. I have an example with this text, The Little Red Riding Hood. I'm not going to read it aloud for you. Alright, you guys, we're going to go to the next slide. Diction. Diction is the author's choice of words in their writing, or it could be the speaker's choice of words in their writing, or in their speaking. I apologize. I have a visual here. It says word choice matters. If we called someone a cat woman, you might get the idea of the lady on the left. Or if I refer to someone as a cat lady, you might get the idea or visual of the picture, the person pictured on the right. Another term to define on your handout is imagery. Imagery is language and description that appeals to our five senses. So authors use imagery to get their readers engaged and involved with the text. It also helps them visualize and imagine what it would be like to be there. Some important words here. There are 5 types of imagery. Auditory imagery. Oops, let me go back. Auditory imagery is what you hear. So details that describe things you can hear in a story would be called auditory. Tactile would be things that you could feel or touch. Descriptions that give you that sense. Gustatory are things that can be tasted. Olfactory are things that we could smell. And visual refers to things that we could see. So an author uses details that should appeal to all of those 5 senses. I'm going to go to the next slide. 2 terms here, simile and metaphor, terms that you've all heard before. A reminder, simile is a comparison using the word like or as. It's a comparison between 2 things that are unrelated but share common characteristics. So the example on the left under simile says, my dog is as smelly as dirty socks. Sometimes that is TJ. He does smell that bad sometimes. Metaphor, it is also a comparison between 2 things that are unrelated but share common characteristics. When they use a metaphor, the words like or as do not appear in it. So I have some examples in this metaphor visual. I'll let you take a look at that. Direct characterization. In direct characterization, the author's words directly tells the reader what the personality of the character is. And indirect characterization is very different. The author's words show things that reveal the personality of a character. And there are 5 different methods of indirect characterization. You would look at 1, the speech of a character, 2, the thoughts of a character, 3, effects on others in the story, 4, the actions of a character, and 5, the looks of a character. So the visual shows the difference between the 2. So if a story had direct characterization, they might say what is on that sign. They might say Mike was a poor chap who lived in a small house. The author is directly telling us about this character. While indirect characterization, the text might read, wealth never knocked on Mike's door. So you would use the words. It doesn't directly tell us that he is poor, but based on the author's text, we can infer that money doesn't come to him often. So that would be indirect characterization. The next slide talks about protagonist and antagonist. 2 words we talked about earlier this year. Protagonist is a central character in a text, but it doesn't have to be someone who's likable. For instance, like the Grinch in the movie. An antagonist is a group of characters which stand in opposition to the protagonist. So in the visuals, you will see an example of a protagonist and an antagonist in one of my favorite movies called Shrek. Foil character. A foil character is a character who highlights through sharp contrast. So they highlight another character's differences and the qualities of another character. So I included 6 different movies and TV shows, and these characters would be foil characters for the other. They are very different from one another, and when they are next to each other, the differences truly stand out. So they would be considered foil characters of each other. Alright, you guys, we're going to move on from foil character. This slide has internal conflict versus external conflict. An internal conflict, you guys already know, it's a mental struggle arising from opposing demands or impulses. So in my visual, I have Homer Simpson with a little angel on his shoulder and a little devil on the other. He's just maybe considering making a difficult decision. The other visuals represent external conflict. An external conflict is a struggle between a person and or an opposing force. Those are the 2 terms for conflict. All right, we're going to talk about irony, and I think these are the last two slides. Irony is when there is a contrast between what is expected and what actually occurs. So if you look at this visual in the middle of irony, on a farm, who would you expect to do the farm work? You would expect the farmer to do the farm work. But here we have a cow doing the farm work, and so this is different than what is actually expected. So this would be an example of irony. We are going to talk about three kinds of irony, and these are the three kinds you will be recording on your handout. The first one is verbal irony. It means the use of words to mean something different than what they appear to be. So in the visual, we have a cloud with some rain and a sun who looks grumpy. And verbal irony would be the cloud saying, "You look so happy to see me." The sun is truly not happy, and you can see that. So there's a little sarcasm there. Situational irony is the difference between what is expected to happen and what actually happens. So in this visual for situational irony, we have a sausage, grilling a sausage, and the events are the opposite of what's expected to be. And lastly, dramatic irony. It's when the audience is more aware of what is happening than a character. So this picture, we have, sorry, that's my dog. So in this visual, it says dramatic irony. There's a lady with her rolling pin, and she's upset because somebody broke her window. Maybe it's the TV. I think it's the window. And the lady says, "Who did this?" And us, as the audience, we know something the character doesn't. We could look at the picture, or we look at the story, and we could see that there was this dog with a baseball bat who hit the ball. So it's funny to us. There's irony that we know and she doesn't know. We will go into these three kinds of irony a lot further later in class, but this is just an overview of all of these terms. I'm going to check if there's one more slide. And that is the end of our show, so I'm going to just hit backspace. I hope you have a great night. Make sure you guys get all of these definitions onto your literary terms handout that I handed out to you in class. I will check that in tomorrow to make sure you have it completed for points in the grade book. Have a good night. Bye.